The stars shimmered cold and distant, casting their pale light across the barren landscape of Zyphora. The wind carried a metallic tang that humans would find unsettling, but to the Zyphorans, it was just another night. Deep in the heart of the warlord's fortress, a young girl struggled against her bonds. Lyra, daughter of the alien queen, twisted her wrists as the cold, energy-based restraints bit into her skin. Her luminous eyes, the color of melted emerald, darted around the dimly lit chamber. She could feel the presence of the warlord's guards outside, waiting, confident in their superiority. Lyra's mind raced. She knew she was a pawn in a far larger game than her own life, yet fear could not take root in her thoughts. She had to survive, and she knew someone might come. But who? Humans rarely ventured this far into Zyphoran territory. Most feared them, dismissed them as fragile and short-lived, incapable of thinking beyond survival. Yet, across the galaxy, one human had already decided that Lyra's plight demanded action. Captain Ethan Ray sat aboard his ship, the Horizon's Edge, reviewing data that no other human dared touch. The transmission he intercepted from Zyphora had been brief, almost accidental, a weak cry for help hidden in a larger distress broadcast. Most humans would have shrugged and turned away. The Galactic Council had strict rules about interference in alien conflicts, but Ethan had never been one to follow rules when morality demanded otherwise. He leaned forward, scanning the data for the millionth time. Every time he looked at it, the girl's terrified voice echoed in his mind. "Please help me." He turned to his small crew, all humans like him, though each with their own quirks and unusual talents. "We're going in," he said simply. "No arguments." The crew exchanged glances. They were used to Ethan's reckless bravery, the kind that made them simultaneously exasperated and inspired. "Are you insane?" one muttered, but no one stopped him. Humans were strange, the Zyphorans would say, reckless, bold. But sometimes, recklessness was courage dressed in a uniform of hope. Hours later, the Horizon's Edge dropped into Zyphoran space. The planet below was an endless desert of steel cliffs and jagged valleys. Sensors picked up patrols of guards and drones everywhere. Ethan's eyes narrowed. He was not the strongest. He had no exotic powers or alien-grade tech beyond what humans could improvise. But he had something else: unpredictability. Zyphorans were powerful, yes, but they relied heavily on patterns and logic. Humans, especially desperate ones, were messy, clever, and impossible to predict. That would be his advantage. The descent was tense. Ethan guided the small shuttle into a canyon where surveillance was weaker, twisting and weaving between jagged peaks. Lyra's prison sat like a crown jewel atop a plateau, guarded by creatures that could crush a human without effort. But Ethan's plan was never about brute force. It was about thinking like the enemy expected him not to. He and his crew landed in the shadow of the cliffs, their suits blending with the rock. Drones hovered above, scanning for movement, but Ethan had studied their patrol patterns. He led his team silently, each step calculated, exploiting a rhythm the aliens themselves relied upon. They reached a side entrance, partially covered by debris from past skirmishes. It looked abandoned, yet the sensors warned of hidden traps. Ethan knelt, inspecting the energy locks with a human tool he had improvised from scraps aboard his ship. It clicked and hummed, lights flashing in a precise sequence that made even his crew hold their breath. Finally, the lock disengaged. The heavy doors opened, revealing the dim interior beyond. Inside, corridors twisted like a maze. Each corner was a potential trap, each shadow a possible enemy. Ethan led the way, relying on intuition, timing, and a deep understanding of human ingenuity. They bypassed automated defenses with clever gadgets, made from nothing more than old communication devices and parts from their shuttle. The Zyphorans would never anticipate such crude but effective tools. At last, they reached the cell. Lyra's eyes widened in disbelief as she saw humans standing before her, alive and unafraid. Ethan knelt beside her. "You're coming with us," he said softly, "and we're getting you out." Her voice trembled. "Why? Humans are so small, fragile. Why risk yourselves for me?" Ethan smiled faintly, a human smile that carried warmth and reassurance. "Because we can, and because sometimes being small doesn't mean being weak. You'll see." With careful hands, he disabled the restraints. Lyra rubbed her wrists, her green eyes scanning each of the humans in turn. They were rough-looking, covered in dirt and scars, yet there was something about their presence, something she couldn't name, that inspired confidence. Their escape began immediately. The alarms rang out moments later, piercing the fortress with a shrill wail. Ethan grinned. He had expected that. The humans moved like shadows, ducking behind walls, sliding down maintenance shafts, and using small explosives to create distractions. The Cypheran guards were powerful, but their training did not account for chaos created by improvisation and desperation. Lyra followed Ethan closely, her senses heightened. She marveled at how the humans moved, how they anticipated danger and responded without hesitation. A simple action like tossing a small device that emitted a blinding light sent a squad of guards reeling. She realized that humans were not fragile, they were cunning, relentless, and frighteningly adaptable. Hours passed in tense silence as they navigated the fortress. The night outside was harsh and the patrols were relentless. Yet Ethan never faltered. His mind worked constantly, finding paths, creating diversions, and keeping his crew and Lyra safe. At one point, they were cornered in a corridor with no visible escape. Ethan scanned quickly and found a maintenance shaft hidden behind a panel. With a combination of strength and clever maneuvering, they slipped inside just as Cypheran enforcers arrived. By the time they reached the shuttle, exhaustion clung to every human like a heavy cloak. Lyra stared at the tiny craft in awe. "You really expect us to escape in that?" she asked, incredulous. Ethan smiled. "Sometimes the smallest ship can outmaneuver the largest fortress." The engines roared to life, cutting through the night sky. Drones pursued them relentlessly, but Ethan's quick thinking, combined with the agility of human technology, kept them one step ahead. Lyra watched, stunned, as he performed maneuvers that defied logic. Her captors had underestimated the humans, and that miscalculation was their undoing. Finally, they reached open space, the planet shrinking behind them. Lyra turned to Ethan, gratitude and awe mingling in her gaze. I've never met a human like you." "You risked everything for me." Ethan shook his head. "It wasn't about risk, it was about doing what's right. That's something humans and maybe all species understand." In the quiet moments after the escape, Lyra contacted her mother. The Queen's face appeared on the screen, regal and formidable, her presence commanding the attention of all who saw her. Her eyes, like molten gold, softened slightly as she saw her daughter safe. Lyra's voice trembled with urgency. "Mother, you need to meet him. He's extraordinary. Humans, they're not what you think. He saved me." The Queen studied the humans aboard the shuttle. Her advisors whispered behind her, cautioning against trust, warning of betrayal. But she could see it, the courage, the intelligence, the moral clarity that emanated from Ethan. He was no ordinary human. He was remarkable. Ethan felt the weight of her gaze across the void of space, but he did not flinch. He had faced countless dangers to save this girl, and now he would face whatever awaited him on her mother's world. Lyra leaned slightly against him, her trust evident. "Do you think she'll believe us?" she asked softly. Ethan glanced at the approaching planet, vast and gleaming. "She'll see soon enough. Humans aren't meant to be underestimated." As the shuttle approached the alien world, its spires glittering under distant starlight, Ethan's mind raced. The next challenge would not be a prison or guards. It would be diplomacy, understanding, and proving that humans, though small in size, were giants in courage and intellect. The Queen's throne world awaited. And when they met, the universe might just shift in ways no one expected. Through the quiet tension of space, Lyra whispered, almost to herself, "He saved me. Mom, he really did." And somewhere deep in her mother's mind, the alien queen pondered a truth she had never considered. Perhaps humans were the unpredictable force the galaxy had been waiting for. The shuttle moved silently toward the planet, carrying its precious human cargo into the unknown, where courage, ingenuity, and an unbreakable moral code would soon be tested in ways that even Ethan could not imagine. The shuttle drifted silently through the thick atmosphere of the alien queen's world. Ethan Ray's eyes scanned the horizon, marveling at the spires and towers that rose like jagged crystals from the ground. Even after countless encounters with alien civilizations, he had never seen anything like this. The architecture was a mixture of elegance and intimidation, perfectly reflecting the nature of its rulers, graceful yet unforgiving. Lyra sat beside him, her gaze fixed on the sprawling city below. She had always known her mother's home was magnificent, but seeing it from this distance, with the shimmering rivers of light running between towers, filled her with a mixture of pride and apprehension. "There, amazing," she whispered, "and terrifying." Ethan gave a small, confident smile. "Allies are sometimes scary at first, but if you can prove yourself, they respect you." He tapped his comms. "Prepare for landing. Keep calm and follow my lead." The shuttle's engines hummed as they maneuvered toward a landing platform that extended from the central palace. As they approached, massive figures emerged from the shadows. The Queen's personal guards, towering and armored, their weapons gleaming under the alien sun. Ethan's crew tensed. Zyphorans were known not just for their strength but for their strict adherence to duty. Any misstep could provoke deadly consequences. Lyra stood, placing herself slightly in front of Ethan. "Mother will know," she said quietly. "Trust him." The shuttle touched down with a controlled grace, kicking up clouds of dust and shimmering particles from the platform. The doors opened and the humans stepped out. The guards formed a strict line, their weapons pointed, eyes unblinking. Ethan held his hands open in a gesture of peace. From the top of the platform, the alien queen descended. She moved with regal authority, her every step deliberate, commanding attention without uttering a word. Her eyes, molten gold that seemed to pierce into one's soul, focused on Ethan. He held her gaze without fear, feeling the weight of her scrutiny but refusing to flinch. "Captain Ethan Ray," she said, her voice deep and resonant, carrying across the platform. "You dare come to my world after defying my enemies." Ethan bowed his head slightly in respect. "Your daughter needed help, Your Majesty. I did what anyone with a conscience would do." The Queen's eyes narrowed, studying him. She was curious, intrigued, but skeptical. Humans were small, fragile, unpredictable. Why risk so much for another species? She had been betrayed before. She had seen worlds fall because of misplaced trust. Yet something about this human unsettled her, something she could not yet name. Lyra stepped forward. "Mother, he saved me. He risked everything to get me out. You need to see it yourself. Humans, they're not like we thought." The Queen's golden eyes shifted from Lyra to Ethan, scanning every detail. She could sense bravery, intelligence, and a kind of moral clarity unusual in most beings she had encountered. Humans, she realized, were underestimated not because of weakness, but because their ingenuity and adaptability were unpredictable. Her advisors whispered urgently behind her, "He may be a spy. It is risky to allow a human on the throne world. We cannot trust him." The Queen raised a hand, silencing them all. "We will test him," she declared. "If he survives and proves his value, he may leave as a friend or an ally." Ethan's heart raced, but he did not show it. "I accept your test," he said calmly, "whatever it is." The first test was immediate. The Queen commanded a series of physical challenges designed to demonstrate strength and agility. Guards led Ethan to an arena where advanced simulations created illusions of dangerous creatures, obstacles, and environmental hazards. Many species had failed these trials before, overwhelmed by fear or brute force alone. Ethan relied on instinct and observation. He noted patterns, understood the logic behind the illusions, and moved with precision. When simulated predators lunged, he dodged and used their own momentum against them. He leapt across unstable platforms, calculated risks, and improvised tools from nothing more than debris within the arena. The Queen observed silently, her expression unreadable. She had expected fear, weakness, hesitation. Instead, she saw a human who thought differently, reacted differently, and never panicked. Every move was a combination of courage, creativity, and careful calculation. When the trial ended, Ethan stood at the center of the arena, unharmed, while the illusions dissipated. The Queen inclined her head slightly, impressed. "You are more capable than I imagined," she said. "But strength alone does not prove the worth of a species." The second test was subtle, yet more revealing. The Queen presented him with a moral dilemma. An injured Xyphoran soldier lay in simulated danger. Ethan could save the soldier, risking failure in the trial, or follow orders to move forward, ensuring personal success. Without hesitation, Ethan chose to help the soldier, using ingenuity to neutralize threats and carry him to safety. Lyra's eyes widened. She had not expected him to risk the test for someone else, and yet it felt entirely human. Compassion, loyalty, courage. It was not about winning, it was about doing what was right. The Queen's expression softened almost imperceptibly. She had expected deception, survival instinct, perhaps self-interest. Instead, she saw something rare: honor, cleverness, and empathy combined in a being she had once thought fragile. Finally, the third test was a combination of intellect and diplomacy. The Queen introduced a scenario where Ethan would have to negotiate between two rival Xyphoran factions. Failure would result in conflict, possibly casualties. He listened carefully, assessed motives, and proposed solutions that balanced logic, fairness, and long-term benefit. The factions, impressed by his creativity and insight, reluctantly agreed. The Queen watched silently, acknowledging that humans possess something unique: the ability to see beyond brute force and immediate advantage, to improvise, and to make moral choices under pressure. After the tests concluded, the Queen descended fully to meet Ethan face to face. "Captain Ray," she said, her voice now carrying respect, "you have shown what humans are capable of. Your courage, your ingenuity, and your honor are unlike anything I have encountered. You saved my daughter, but more than that, you have proven the potential of your entire species." Ethan bowed slightly. "Thank you, Your Majesty. I am just one human, but we all have the capacity to do great things if we choose to act with courage." The Queen studied him for a moment longer. Then, turning to her advisors, she declared, "Prepare for a formal alliance. Humans will no longer be dismissed as insignificant. They are not just capable, they are formidable, and they have proven their loyalty and intelligence." Lyra stepped forward, her eyes shining with pride and gratitude. "He saved me, Mother," she said. "He truly did." The Queen placed a hand on her daughter's shoulder, and for a moment her imposing presence softened. "And you have shown me the truth about humans. Perhaps the galaxy has underestimated them for too long." In the following weeks, Ethan became a celebrated figure on the throne world. His crew adapted to the alien environment, sharing knowledge, culture, and ingenuity with the Xyphorans. Humans were small, yes, but their ideas, courage, and moral clarity began to ripple across Xyphora, earning respect and admiration. Ethan found himself sitting in the palace gardens one evening, watching Lyra interact with her mother. The Queen had allowed humans unprecedented access, trusting them as allies rather than subjects. The city shimmered with lights, reflecting both alien beauty and the dawn of a new alliance. Lyra approached Ethan, smiling. Do you realize what you've done? Not just for me, but for all of us. Ethan shrugged, leaning against the railing. I did what I could. Humans always try to do what's right, even if it seems small. Sometimes that's enough to change everything. The Queen emerged from the palace doors, her golden eyes fixed on Ethan. Captain Ray, humanity has much to offer, but more importantly, you have shown that courage and honor can bridge the gap between species. Perhaps together we can face the conflicts ahead with a strength no one expected. Ethan nodded. I believe we can. And for the first time, the Queen allowed herself a small, approving smile. She had seen countless species come and go, each claiming superiority. Yet humans, small and underestimated, had demonstrated a power beyond mere strength. Creativity, courage, and the willingness to act rightly even when the odds were impossible. As night fell over the throne world, stars shimmering above, humans and Zyphorans alike looked to the future with renewed hope. The galaxy was vast and dangerous, but now, allies who understood each other's strengths could face it together. Ethan glanced at Lyra, then at the Queen. The universe doesn't know what it's about to face, he said softly, and we might just surprise them. Lyra laughed quietly, the sound light and full of relief. It already has, she said. You've changed everything. The Queen's eyes gleamed. Indeed, and perhaps it is time the galaxy learns the truth. Never underestimate humanity. Ethan smiled, looking out at the vast expanse of stars. He knew the journey ahead would be challenging, but he also knew that humans, with their courage, ingenuity, and heart, were ready. The galaxy was unpredictable, and that unpredictability was humanity's greatest strength. And somewhere deep in the cosmos, a new legend began to take shape. A story of a human who had saved an alien princess, earned the respect of a queen, and reminded the galaxy that small beings could cast shadows as long and wide as any giant. The universe was listening, and for the first time, humans had its attention.